Okay, back to the chronological survey and the Iliad and the Odyssey. One thing to mention is that if you, when I've discussed this, when I was teaching in public school, I would usually show a clip of the movie Monty Python's Search for the Holy Grail. There's a spoof of the Trojan horse. I call it the Trojan rabbit. Kids really like it. It should not be hard to find. Go for it if you want. Normally I go in chronological order, but there I jump to England, Anglo-Saxon England. Well, anyway, what I want to discuss here is Homer's art. I think most people probably just think of Homer as a writer or something. And I hate it when I hear somebody say, Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. No, he didn't write them. He was illiterate, almost certainly. He couldn't read or write. Legend has it that Homer was blind. And what Homer was a singer of tales. And I put that in quotes, singer of tales. If you search that, word search that, you're liable to come up with the name of, find that it was a book by Alfred Lord, I think was his name. I get a little bit mixed up. When I was at Harvard, and I don't talk about Harvard too much, but I took a course on this, and it was one of the really good courses I took. I don't think it was Alfred Lord that was the professor, but it was rather his follower. That was the main textbook, and so I learned a good bit about this. It means a good bit to me. A singer of tales can also be called a bard. Shakespeare was not a bard in this sense. He's called the bard, but he was not really a bard. It could be called an epic singer, a scop. Singers of tales date from before the time of writing. Epics, true epics, date from before the time of writing. And bards, or singers of tales, had this ability to sing poetry spontaneously. They didn't have it memorized. They were able to simply make it up as they went. It's rather hard to understand because we live in a world now where we read everything and we write things down and we might memorize things or we might read them. But in the pre-literate world, the singers of tales were the guardians of their cultures or their nation's history. It's so different from a modern poet in that a singer of tales would never want to make anything up. No, he would just represent what he knew as true. He would sing the tale that he had heard as a kid. One of the reasons I care a good bit about this is because after I got out of Harvard, I joined the Peace Corps and I went into Brazil. And there in Brazil, among the illiterate Brazilian vaqueiros, the cowboys, I ran into singers of tales. They were called repentistas. And they did something very similar. These were poor Brazilian cowboys. They didn't read or write, but they had their poetry. So I've actually lived the experience. I've heard them do it. After a rodeo, they would get together and they would sing these tales, sing these stories. There was one case where, when I went to leave Brazil, my wife and I, one of the repentistas came at the departing party and actually tried to sing a tale of Frank and Joyce, who had been there. He had a hard time doing it because it didn't work very well. It was too modern. Part of the technique of the singers of tales is they use what are called formulas, groups of words that they use again and again. That's one of the reasons that they're able to do this. Those words didn't work well. But the Brazilians realized that I was enthused about the fact that there were repentistas. Well, anyway, I can't do this in a classroom anymore because I don't have a television, but I do have the VCR tapes. I used to always show the kids some of this, and I'll direct you to this, and you'll have to simply be curious enough to go find it. But on YouTube, you should be able to find both of these. There was a documentary called In Search of the Trojan War, made in 1985. Michael Wood, I think, was the guy. Well, the second episode in it is called The Singer of Tales. And you can find this on YouTube at this guy's channel. And you could search it with what I've told you already, but if you find Turkish medieval song, there you'll hear sort of what it sounded like when Homer did this singing. It wasn't a pretty song that you go away humming the tune. This is a world away from the modern world. I'm sort of giving you a key or an introduction into going someplace that you probably never imagined. So I would usually show that at least the part in Turkey where they're singing, and there'd be two of them singing back and forth between the two of them. And then I would jump to modern day United States, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, in this documentary, The Story of English. Episode 5 in that was called Black on White. It dealt with the influence that black people have had on white people with the English language. I mean, that whole series is worth watching. But anyway, especially the 7th of 7, but also the 6th of 7, those two are very worth watching. And this guy's channel here would enable you to watch it. And what I like to point out to the kids is that modern day rap is similar in a way. A truly great rap artist doesn't memorize his rap. He uses formulas, and he's not reading off a music stand. He hasn't memorized it. He's creating his poetry on the spot. In one of these two, or I think it's maybe in the second one, it starts with a kid sitting on some steps. He says, the building is here, bricks fall to the ground. You see the whole boys all gather around, see the MC rapper sitting on the steps, getting much respect, and on he goes. Well, he's trying to show that it's a spontaneous rap, but he's using formulas. You see the MC rapper. I mean, I'm sorry about my using black English, but the thing to do is go look at these. Well, it's one of those things that it's gone in a way from the modern world. Once people learn to read and write, epic poetry dies. At a certain point, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, and Beowulf was another example. They were written down, so we have them and we can read them. That's not the same as actually hearing them done. Well, I cannot do this justice, but I've tried, and I'm directing you to where you can find out more about it. I have one more video today.